Hello and welcome to this episode of The Inspired Attorney, hosted by me, Sharon V. Today we're talking with Jennifer Wioncek, who gives us insights as to how she balances her firm life with her teaching career. She also gives advice for those of you who are in law school becoming attorneys, and we touch on other topics such as billable hours and things that she has learned throughout her career. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for being a part of The Inspired Attorney.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself for our audience?
Yes, my name is Jennifer Wioncek. I am a partner in Bilzen Sumberg's tax group.
Great. And where are you from?
So I'm originally from Michigan, just outside of Detroit. I grew up there, started undergrad there, and then I moved down to Florida after my first year in undergrad, and finished out down here and been here ever since. So I spent half my life in Michigan and pretty much now more than half my life in Miami.
So what got you into law?
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm a bit of a sports junkie. So I was an athlete all throughout school, and I kind of was one of those people that originally thought I was going to be a professional athlete, even as a female. I mean, this is going back to the 90s. You know, you didn't see a lot of professional women athletes, but I still had that dream. But that dream slowly faded as I, finished out my undergrad and sort of had to figure out what I was going to do next. And I was always kind of drawn to the law, particularly law enforcement. So I kind of had this wild idea that maybe I'd go into the FBI. And so when I did some background research about what kind of things that the FBI looks at for resume purposes, I found out that, one of the top 2 degrees that they look for is accounting degree or a law degree. So I said, okay, well, accounting degree was certainly not going to be the option. Sorry for any of those who are also CPAs out there. But I said, I'll take a shot at going to law school. It should be interesting. So that's what I did. And while I was in law school, I was also a double major. I was doing the business degree at the same time. And I was forced, as part of the business curriculum, to take a basic federal income tax class. And I dreaded the thought of it and was trying to delay it as far possible as I could. And eventually I took the class, and it pretty much opened my eyes. It really challenged me. And from then on, I was hooked. Took as many tax classes as I could before I graduated and moved on to get my tax L.L.M degree. And now here I am about 15 years later.
That's amazing. And when did you become a part of the firm that you are now?
So I originally started my career at Baker McKenzie. After I graduated, I was there for just about 10 years. So I moved over to Bilzen. I guess I'm going into year 4. Time has passed pretty quickly.
Yeah, time does tend to do that. It flies right before our
Yes.
eyes. I know that you also teach on the side. So how did you also get into that?
Well, it was probably when I was 3rd or 4th year associate. There was some discussion about a new class that was being started at University of Miami in their tax L.L.M program, where the dean of the school was trying to get a lot of different practitioners' input on how to build a class. And I was asked to join with one of the partners at the time. And from then on, I wanted that opportunity. I just thought maybe this would be a good, at the time, resume builder. I didn't get to teach the class that I was helping out on at the beginning. I ended up teaching a class that talks about taxation of trusts and estates, which is probably the hardest class to teach out there. And and probably the hardest class to sit in on as a student too. I remember when I was a student in that class. But I had the opportunity when it came up, because I told the dean I'd be interested if something came up, and that was the first class that came up. So I took it. I taught that class for 3 years, and then the class that I originally wanted to teach opened up, and I jumped on that and switched to that class, and I've been teaching that class ever since. So I really enjoy it. It allows me to kind of stay on top of the law, I hate using the word expert, but at least kind of being viewed as an expert out there. But taking that aside, I really just enjoy the student and the mentoring aspect. So from the first class that I taught through now just finishing up my most recent semester here last week, I stay in touch with all my students. They reach out to me, and it's really been great. And it's good for also recruitment purposes. I now work with 2 of my former students, so it's really exciting and very in some ways, given the topic of this interview, inspirational too. It's good to know that you might have played a part in some person's career path.
Which class are you teaching?
So right now I teach a class called Representing High Net Worth Individuals, which is really exactly what I do on a daily basis. So it's great. So I get to it's a really practical class. I get to talk about what I do pretty much. It's not boring. It's not hard to teach. The students enjoy it. So yeah, that's what I'm teaching now.
I think that's amazing because you're able to give them real world experience about the class. Do you give any specific advice to your students?
Oh yeah. In fact, it's kind of funny you say that. Part of my class, or all my classes, even the other class, I made it a point at the beginning of every class to spend about 10 minutes talking about career-related advice. We change the topic every week, but because I realized after graduating from law school that law school isn't there to teach you to be prepared for how to be a lawyer, right? So I try to focus on the practical things that they can expect after they graduate. We start from, talking about networking to the interview process to the first day on the job, how to deal with assignments, interaction with partners, and, so on and so forth through, up to partnership tracks, assuming that's, their goals and they're in a firm. But yeah, I do spend quite an amount of time giving that type of advice to the students, and I always encourage them to set up meetings with me. And every year I get at least half the class that reaches out to me and asks for their own separate meeting with me to talk about how to approach an interview that they may have, or which firms they should reach out to. So it's really good. I like doing it. It makes me feel like I'm giving back in some way.
I think it's beautiful because it's so important to ask for help and also to be there to help people when they need it. So it goes hand in hand. Agreed. So how do you manage everything that you have going on and maintain a work-life balance?
Well, it's kind of funny, as I was just saying, with those career advice related topics that I discuss with my students. One of those topics towards the end of the semester is the work-life balance topic. And I call it the work-life balance, real or myth. Can you really achieve a work-life balance being a practicing full-time lawyer? Because it's not easy. So I always, basically say, first and foremost, it is really about what you make of it, really. Because if you really want to be successful as a lawyer, it takes a lot of hard work and effort. Things just don't get handed to you most of the time. Things don't get handed to you on a silver platter. So if you want to be successful, chances are you are just going to be working a lot of hours in order to get into where you want to be. And so what's left after that is really becomes the life part of it, right? Because, working, this is not a 9-to-5 job. So it's not an easy career path by any stretch of the means. And, I want to make particularly the students coming out of my class to let them know that, hopefully I can say this word in this interview, that they really need to bust their ass to when they start off. And I interview a lot of people, and the last thing that you want to hear from somebody starting off is, can I work from home, right? That to me is something that you earn. So, but I also tell them that as much as you're going to have to work hard, that for me, the work-life balance has tended to revolve around being organized. So if you can organize yourself, and I live by my calendar, if you can make sure you build things into your calendar to take breaks for yourself and do the things that you enjoy, that's going to be super important for work-life balance purposes. The good thing with, the practice of law is your schedule, while it can be quite hectic, can be adjustable. So if you're the type of person like me that needs to work out to stay sane, maybe it's I get into the office by 10, and I spend the morning to work out, and maybe I stay an extra hour later in the office, whatever I need to do. But it's important you put it into your calendar, because I'm the perfect example. In my early days in my career, I didn't do that. I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to this. But and I ended up getting sick a lot because I just kept going and working and working and working and not building in that work-life balance. But I also think there is a balance to your career and your work-life balance. So, and I go back to what I said at the beginning, is that it's about what you make of your professional career goals. And I can't tell anybody that. Everybody's different.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned that you work out. Is there anything else that you do to manage stress?
For me, it's pretty much the athletic activities that I like to do, which unfortunately now some of those activities I can't do because of social distancing. So I'm sort of substituting with other things. I also, was very heavy into mixed martial arts. And that was a great stress relief, because you'll really be surprised that being able to hit things can help. So I don't have much of that right now going on, but I'm doing my best. So for me, it's athletics, working out, being outside, getting some fresh air is for me big stress relievers.
Those are great tips. What is one of the biggest challenges you feel like you have faced in your career, and how did you respond to that challenge?
Yeah, that's a tough question. In a lot of ways, I feel like I've been blessed in my career. I don't think that I've faced a lot of challenges that maybe I've heard some of my colleagues and peers over the years have faced, maybe because they're a woman, or other, issues that sometimes you hear about. So for me, I feel like the biggest challenge so far has been when I made my decision to switch firms, because at the time, the tax practice group at my current firm was in expansion mode. So it was an exciting opportunity, but like with anything, there was that risk element too. And here I was with the same firm for 10 years. You kind of get a little complacent. You don't know what's going to happen, but it's like the old saying goes, you sort of, you know what you have. So, and what you don't have is scary. So, and sometimes it's just easier to stick with what you know. But so for me, the switch, making that decision and kind of maybe having to prove yourself again a little bit, and to have to contribute to the overall success of a practice group, That's probably been the most challenging because, in hindsight, I didn't know how challenging it was. We had some bumps along the way, trying to find the right pieces. Some of those pieces, left for one reason or the other. And so now I think after so many years, I didn't even think in the possibility of years. We now have a really good team, but there was that years that it took, and I guess in my mind I was thinking more along the lines of months. So that definitely has been the most challenging.
If you were to go back and give yourself advice in that moment, what would you tell yourself?
For that particular challenge, that situation,
Yeah.
Probably to have asked more questions about what the firm's goals were with the practice group, on whether it be compensation, to how many team members, to whatever it goes into sort of building a team. You in some shape or form, there was probably a little naivety on my part because I had never done that. So if I knew how to build a team, it would have been a lot easier at the time. So I would have asked more questions probably around that. That's what I can think of at the moment.
I think that's really great advice because oftentimes we really don't ask enough questions for whatever reason. And those help us guide ourselves, on the right path. So
yeah, in one way, in one hand, I was excited to make the move. So, maybe there was a rush in some way, timing of things like that can come up when you're making a career change, or not a career change, a change in your firm. Again, if I just would have taken maybe an extra day or two to let things sink in and ask more questions, that probably would have made me feel more comfortable than when all the bumps and came up in the road. I would have said, oh, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah. If we were to apply that same question to your career or also when you were in law school, what advice would you give yourself?
The thing that I think about law school the most is I wish I would have spent more time planning better for student loan debt. I was blessed. My family, paid for a great, private high school education. I had scholarship for undergrad. So everything after that, though, was on me. And that's fine. I'm glad that I did it. I think it made me a better, stronger person. But I definitely was not prepared for what student loan debt does to your psyche and the pressure, because it can be really crippling to know that you have this big debt now there looming, and you feel like the only way that you can pay for it is to get that job that makes you get the biggest salary so you can start paying this thing down. So I wish that schools did a better job of educating, pre-law students about student loan debt. And I really would like to see, student loan debt change. The system needs to change in some shape or form around that, because there's so much debt out there that are being carried, not just by lawyers, but a lot of students in other types of fields. So that would be my biggest thing, is student loan debt.
Do you have any advice for people who are going through that?
It's, you take the current situation that we're in, right? This crisis that we're all living through at the moment. Would you, if for some reason you were laid off from your job, if you were, let's say, not a lawyer, right? You were laid off from your job and and maybe that particular industry will never come back. So what do you do next? You might think about going back to school, and what would you do? And, I remember back in back in the early 2000s, when we had the last sort of big market crash, there was a lot of movement of people going in back to school, right? And I just tell people that I get it. We're in this, you have to figure out what to do in life. You got to take care of your family, you got to take care of yourself. So you got to do what you got to do. But understand that loan debt may not be able to be easily paid back. I remember one time I looked into what an average salary of a Florida lawyer was, and I think my jaw dropped, because they don't make a lot. There is a reason why there is a phrase called struggling lawyers, right? So they're struggling because in a lot of ways it's associated with the student loan debt and trying to maintain it. And those high-paying jobs are not always going to be available, and that creates an environment of competition and other things that come out of that. So I just say that really just think about these things ahead and prepare yourself for them later as best as you can. Maybe if you could talk to a financial advisor ahead of time. I wish I would have talked to a financial advisor ahead of time to know how much interest I was going to be paying on the back end and how much I would have, need to make to cover those payments. I'm blessed. I've always had a very good paying job. So I'm totally blessed, but it's still, my student loan debt has not been paid off, and it still looms over me. So, I really have people think about that hard before making those decisions.
For sure. I think it's such a relevant topic, because in that moment you only see, the potential, but you don't realize the reality of the situation.
I'd add that, interestingly enough, I have my niece who lives with me, and she is going to be graduating. She just finished up her semester, so she's graduating, and her goal is to go to law school. So she's in the application LSAT phase right now. And I've been trying to talk to her about payment, of how are we going to pay for law school, right? Because I'm trying to teach her and trying to let her know about how much debt I have, and we need to figure out a way to help her not get into the same position that I was, because I'm not going to be able to carry my own debt and take on her debt as well. So we have to come up with some solution here. I don't have it yet, but that's something that I actually am in the process of doing right now.
Yeah, gonna have to get resourceful.
Yes.
So with the current situation that we have going on with the coronavirus, how is your firm responding?
The firm's been great. Thankfully, all of our practice groups, not just the tax practice group, were well positioned for what we call counter-cyclical work. Everybody's super busy right now. Our staff is working from home. Thankfully, nobody's lost their jobs. We're all working very, very hard, and the firm has been very informative along the way. There's what they call weekly town hall meetings, whether it's for the partners to the associates to the staff, to keep everybody up to date on what's going on with the firm, because people are nervous. They just want to make sure that they're going to have a job to come back to. And so there's been that transparency there of making people know that we're doing well as a firm in comparison to a lot of our competitors. We don't know how long that will go for. Obviously, the longer this crisis continues, the greater chance of some economic impact. But so far, the firm has been pretty nimble, and which has really helped us through this crisis so far.
In terms of like the work side of things, Do you have anything that you feel that they've implemented that really helps people stay efficient while they're working at home?
Well, as I personally have worked from home already about 1 to 2 times a week. I personally am more efficient at home. But the staff, which were not able to work from home, I think for them, what they're doing, again, what I understand, I'm not entirely involved in this part, but I think that there is a process of where they're supposed to kind of give a daily rundown of what they did, because staff, unlike an attorney who would put in their billable time, right, you can kind of track what they're doing from that. But staff, they don't put billable time down. So how do you track it? So I think they've been trying to institute a daily just summary of what they worked on, just to make sure that they're actually doing things. And I don't think we've had any issues around people like taking advantage of the fact that they're working from home. And I think the firms are also very lenient and flexible, because some of our staff have children, and those who have children are dealing with having to be the teachers, or at least corral their children to sit in front of the computer, from what I understand, and try to be a teacher and work at the same time, and it's very stressful. So I know that they've been pretty good about understanding that, if you need to take 2 hours away because that's when the scheduled call for school is, then you have to do it.
I think that's amazing, because, we're really all in this together. So allowing that balance is just great.
Yep.
Do you have any wishes for the future of the practice of law?
Yes and no. I think it's inevitable that artificial intelligence is going to, continue to disrupt the practice of law as well as other industries. I just hope that it doesn't completely wipe out our jobs. But I do think it's about trying to incorporate it into our jobs, going back to the work-life balance point. I'm all for using AI in a way that would make our lives a little bit more efficient. Maybe that can't be always true for certain types of practices or, projects that you may be working on. But I think the more that we can use it in a way to help us be more efficient, I'm all for. The other thing that I've been talking about to anybody who listens is I really, now after almost, going on 15 years, a little bit, I am not a fan of the billable hour. And I know that the people out there who live and die by the billable hour, everybody I've talked to can't stand it. You live your life in the 0.1 increments. And I'm a big advocate of trying to find some other metric system to evaluate and compensate lawyers. Because I can't tell you how much it hurts the psyche to know that you work so hard through the year, you get to the end, and then everything goes back to zero on January 1. It's like, it's such a defeating process over and over again. And I know that people get really psychologically upset over the billable hour system. It causes stress and anxiety. I've seen it cause unnecessary competition between lawyers. And I've also seen it cause unethical billing for lawyers because they have to meet a certain quota. And if they don't get a bonus. So they'll just pad their billable hour. Now, hopefully the person who's reviewing those bills would say, wow, this person took so much time to work on this when they shouldn't have. And hopefully some red flags will come up. But it doesn't create a good environment at the end of the day for all sides. So I think we need to find a better system.
I think that's a great point to make. Do you have any advice for your peers?
Other than, and given what we're facing today, today's environment, I would say just be patient and nice with everybody. We're all under a lot of stress. That's all I have to say at the moment.
I think those are some beautiful words to close this out. Do you have anything to add?
No, I just wanted to again say thank you for the opportunity. I am also open to people who might be listening to this conversation, whether they're happen to be thinking about going into law or already in the practice of law and want to talk more about their career choices and issues. I'm open to talk to people.
Amazing. That's awesome. I'm sure people are definitely going to take advantage of that. I'm going to include your contact information in the information below this video.
Sure.
Jennifer, thank you so much for being a part of the Inspired Attorney.
No, thank you again.
Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please give it a like so I know to continue making these for you. And also follow or subscribe so you can see every episode of The Inspired Attorney as it is released to you. I provided Jennifer's contact information below, so please reach out to her. And also, if you're seeking strategic guidance on how to maximize the overall profitability of your small firm, please reach out to me as well. I offer 2 complimentary options. I host a small firm virtual roundtable on a weekly basis, and also one-on-one strategy sessions with me are available to you. So reach out, and until next time.